Good morning, good morning. This is the Growth CVC meeting of 3rd May 2023. My name is Raphael from Flipside Crypto, and we're kicking this meeting off with a short discussion about how specific the output of CVCs should be in general. Vigilant is kind enough to share that he's seeing very specific language regarding advisory councils and their work, but outside of that, generic language seems to be fine. TrueName and QGov are seconding that notion. I think that's interesting. So I think as the Growth CVC, we probably should then become more specific regarding the advisory councils. But I mean, maybe somebody can clarify either in the chat or if you can hop on the mic, then what does specific language mean? Work, okay, I understand that, but like, have you seen concrete suggestion of members or activity? Like, what does it mean? Okay, that's very helpful. I'll just read it first, so we have a. Basically, we will concern ourselves with exactly the first articles that go into like what the advisory council does, and then Vigilance says unambiguous and objective constraints on which types of members and boundaries on what they can do. Okay, that's cool. So, and that's actually a perfect segue to the agenda, because the ecosystem scope that will probably be merged into the support scope if the next MIP 102 gets voted in, which I expect it to be. And right here, this is for me like a really fascinating question. So, okay, maker governance is quite unique, and maker endgame governance is even more specialized, and we can see that because I think if you look at like all the governance nerds in the world, this group that meets here every Wednesday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday are the ones that know the most about endgame, and we have all these questions. So the question is it feasible, or even do you think we could find external people who can even propose something that's valuable as an advisory council in the ecosystem scope and the support scope? I mean, I'm having quite a hard time to imagine that. On the other hand, getting external experts and like really cool governance nerds in could also be pretty valuable. So maybe what I think, so I think what's pretty clear is we will not find people who know more about the endgame than inside of Maker at the moment. That being said, there should at least be like 1 or 2 people in the advisory council from within the Maker community. But what else could be valuable from outside Maker? So if endgame knowledge is already provided by 1 or 2 members of the advisory council, what other requirements could we have for advisory council members that would be valuable here? Yeah, good project management skills, definitely. Yeah, true name. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we choose 1 or 2 members from within the community that kind of are already familiar with Enscape. And then we get other members who have skill sets that kind of complete that picture, right? So I think that was pretty valuable, like deliverables, milestones, deadlines. So project management, knowledge management, I think is something that could be extremely valuable. So I would be super curious if anybody here, and that doesn't have to be now, but like if you know about great tools to manage knowledge, quickly changing knowledge, then please drop it in the Discord chat. Also, if you know people that are researching about that, I think that's also something that I'd be extremely interested in. I was talking to a guy called Maurice, a handle, like governance nerd out of the whole mirror community, I think. And he was telling me about knowledge gardening, which is a very interesting process where basically you create these structures and then you see what people reference and use the most, and then you just make sure that these avenues are then supported more and more. What do you mean, defensor? ThreadFi uses step guides. 1 LOD. What does it mean? First line of defense. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So what's like, if I would have to write a job description, what would the name be that I would be looking for here? Yes, exactly. Governance optimizer. I meet those every day, like, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. Like, I mean, I know there's people who like do this kind of intranet stuff, you know, like wikis and um, intranet information platforms and knowledge management and stuff like that. But if we could get that down to like a short like job description, I think that would be like an amazing take. Okay, so I think maybe this is like some homework. If you can think about knowledge management practices and skill sets that or jobs that work in the traditional world or in DAOs, then please just drop it in the Discord chat. Obviously, don't like shill any one single solution, but just like surface what you can find. I think that would be extremely valuable. Yeah, exactly. Or in the sheet. Yeah, that's also awesome. Okay, moving on here. In the interest of time, I also have I have a hard stop at 4 p.m. UTC. So we have quite something to go through. DAO toolkit questions. So one of the big pain points at the moment is that it's super hard to see what changed. I think GitHub does a quite good job of that, but the stuff only moves to GitHub once it's going to vote. So I think if anyone in this group knows any tools that kind of make that easy, where we can really see and annotate and work on these changes somewhat collaboratively, but still like see what's changing, who's proposing what, I think that would be one. Diff checker. Okay, cool. Wait, making a note here. Diff tools, diff checker. Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks. Comments, super welcome. Then representing knowledge. We have the MIP portal. I think that's fine at the moment. I also like the direction that the new forum is taking. Is there anything here that delegates feel is a pain point that would make your life easier? Just in terms of like how knowledge is presented, how you can like search for what's going on, like what's missing here, what's making your life hard at the moment? Yeah. Discussion of changes, paper suggests. Up to the author, of course, but I like the suggestion. I mean, that would kind of help. Yeah, totally. You're right, paper, definitely. And it also like it gives the author the opportunity to explain his intention, which I think is sometimes more valuable than the actual verbiage. Okay, then if there's nothing else, I think like for me as an ABC member, or like feel free to make any suggestions later on, of course, but as an ABC member, like seeing these changes, like what Tim suggested with Diff Checker, that's fine. That's like my major pain point here. And we discussed how to best propose these documents, and I think we found a way with the sheet, and then probably moving that into a doc later on. Okay, moving on. Budgets, accounting. So I think. Okay, wait. I'll copy that from Tim. I think Steakhouse is doing like a really cool job with the latest report, and like the way they develop the whole thing is. And they said DAI maturity help. Okay, so what does it mean? Because I think
I'll just hop on the mic because yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome.
So I will say that I'm a little bit out over my skis on this one, but I'd say maybe have enough awareness to comment on their behalf. Obviously, this is not going to be perfect, but you know, when we're talking about ALM strategies and liability management, right? Realistically, a lot of that is coming from USDC at a larger point through the PSM. Technically, the PSM is a guest user owned. And I think what they really want to know is where is the line, right? And so the line of understanding when that is transferring into the DAO to be managed, et cetera, is very fuzzy. But you can probably pretty much assume that at some point of time, the amount of DAI that's come from the PSM is pretty much, it's not going to move again. And I think that's what they were saying. They really want to understand more deeply, is the motion of die going through that router, basically. Oh, Mark is here. Yeah, Mark why did I even talk? Mark, you say things. Ignore everything I just.
No, it's good comments, Tim. Appreciate it. But yeah, you know, crypto ALM is definitely a very new and novel field, and we don't proclaim to be experts because there really isn't and can't be this early in it. But I think one thing that's unique about blockchains, and that one of the reasons it's exciting to do this type of work right now, is that you have all this data on chain. So, you know, Seb's really kind of done the groundbreaking work around, you know, what are people using DAI for? Like, where are they using it? How long are they holding it? Like, where are they holding it? And it's really about better understanding all the users of DAI and how they're using it, where they're using it, and why they're using it. And then building the, you know, asset side to kind of align with what the users of DAI are doing. That way we can kind of maximize the stability of DAI, but also, you know, maximize and optimize our yield generation for the protocol to make sure that we're growing the surplus buffer and even better protecting DAI users. So, you know, we did a grant last year with one Pastrami, who I forget what bank he works for, but you know, he has you know, professional experience in ALM, and you know, we're definitely looking for more people, as well as talking to him more about potential, you know, work that can be done around this. But this is definitely something that's a pretty new area, kind of requires, you know, background in data analytics and ALM, because we're, you know, getting all this raw data on the blockchain and trying to, you know, use the ALM professional input to turn it into something that, you know, ideally in the end state is fully, you know, automated through, you know, quantifiable metrics. You know, we've talked to Sam Hexanaut about, you know, creating an automated ALM framework, and I think that's really exciting. It's just going to take a lot of time, data, and professional input to build something like that. And I think he's posted some comments on the forums and posted about it, but that's kind of where we're at right now and how we're thinking about it.
Thanks, Mark. That's super good. And I also like Vigilance comments and Bono Publico that we need real world ALM, and we also need like crypto, like decentralized collateral ALM, right? Mark, if you could like write up a sentence or two, then we'd definitely include that in our recommendations for advisors. I can also like, I know some TradFi people, I can like shop around and see like who would be interested, what their profiles are, and then I could just surface that, and then the facilitators can like pick and choose. Because I think like at some point this whole advisory thing has to become very concrete. Like we actually need people, and I think the way to get there is like if we propose people and then the facilitators, delegates, and ABCs kind of hone in on what kind of people actually are suited and not, or are not suited, because otherwise we will always remain in this kind of nebulous terrain of, okay, yeah, like you know, like the problem with job descriptions, right? Like in the end, like you have to choose a person, and I think the more concrete this becomes, the better. Yeah, vigilant. I'm totally aware of that. This is a slippery slope, but I think staying in this abstract terrain is the worst, because that way we will never get to specifics, and we have to start implementing at some point. And so I think as long as, so I'd be totally happy with mentioning like 4 or 5 people, if I'm not saying, oh, by the way, this guy is amazing, and I also have this guy, but actually he's junk, right? Like I think so we have to kind of finesse around that slippery slope a bit, I think, because I don't see any other way how we can get to concrete specifics. Like how would we ever choose, or you know? I mean, but I'm open to process suggestions there. This is just like my take. Okay. Yeah, that could work. What TrueName suggested. So yeah, Mark, if you could like just drop a line or two summarizing what you said into the Discord chat, then that would be super helpful. If you have time. Otherwise, I'll try to do it from my memory, but I think it's always better if it comes from the point of origination.
Yeah, I can write something up. There's a separate Discord channel for
Yeah, there's a Growth AVC channel.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Okay. It seems you already wrote that. Okay, copy please. Gotcha. So then support scope, communications infrastructure, and so on. This kind of feels a little bit like it's also touching resiliency. Do you feel that we should leave that until the resiliency part, or should we touch that now? Like where do you think this best belongs? Does it belong here or rather into resiliency? Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it out. I'm gonna leave it out for now. It's not super important anyway. So working with ecosystem actors, like we definitely need some sort of structure of how to ask for work, some templates, like how ecosystem actors can submit work and how that gets tracked. I think we need that sooner rather than later. Mid 96, mid 97 were quite a good push in that direction, that the DAO level objectives and then work proposals. I haven't seen any specific language in the scopes yet. So I think we need to kind of come up with something. Do you think we should just take like best practices from like the world of grants or from tenders? DAO level objective are ratified in one of the scopes. Oh, really? Oh, cool. Which one did you let? Do you happen to have that at that? Ecosystem. For integrating ecosystem. Okay, wait, let me check how that looks. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm gonna go read and see where I think. Hey, does anybody have any like things that could need to be updated here that are kind of will make it hard for Maker to work with ecosystem actors or an external talent? Sure. Is there anything specific where you think in that like ecosystem actor subclause of the MIP 106 that that needs changing, that's like at the moment hindering us from effectively working with ecosystem actors, or do you think this is fine as it is? Okay, it seems that that's fine at the moment. I think we'll get more info as soon as we start. What's the call from level 0 to 1? Can you say a bit more what that means, bona publica? Like what did level 0 talk to the EA about? Thanks. I'll read that later. Okay, shortly after half, that's pretty good. Let's move on to the protocol scope. That's super exciting. I think that at the timing couldn't be better. We've seen the first spell that was drafted by Phoenix Labs and D-Wiz and Pull-Up. This is pretty amazing. I think people are checking that at the moment. And Shupi was kind enough to weigh in on that and said, the spell is looking good yesterday at 9. So that seems to be pretty cool. We'll just monitor that. That's a really cool development. I think that it's like already starting to become more decentralized. Who's actually developing the protocol? Is there anything that the delegates or other facilitators here or other participants in this call want to flag about the current process? Any issues? Yeah, sure. Yeah, protocol scope for the new chain. Yeah, definitely. Do you want to do it now, Bona Publica, or grant permission? Okay, that would be screen share. Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks. At the moment, I just see black. Yeah, that was good.
Slide 1. This is research and knowledge gathering about relevant things in the Maker ecosystem. Exploring the new chain concept by the Cosmos SDK. Slide 2. Using Canto as an example of a blockchain using Tendermint consensus secured by Canto validator nodes and an EVM execution layer via Cosmos SDK. Canto is a permissionless, general-purpose blockchain that runs the Ethereum virtual machine EVM and provides Tendermint consensus secured by Canto validator nodes. Canto provides core financial primitives designed to support the free public infrastructure FPI, which includes Canto DEX, Canto lending market, and node stablecoin. The goal of Canto is to provide liquidity as a free public good with zero fees for liquidity providers LPs. MakerDAO is considering using the Tendermint stack to build a new chain. This presentation will discuss how the Tendermint stack can possibly benefit MakerDAO's new chain. Slide 3. Canto's liquidity primitives. Canto DEX is a zero-fee DEX for liquidity providers. Canto lending market is a pooled lending compound V4. These primitives provide high liquidity and low fees for traders, arbitrageurs, and protocols that use Canto blockchain. The volume of transactions on these platforms is growing steadily, indicating the success of Canto's liquidity as a free public good model. Slide 4. Minimal viable user capture. Canto DEX does not have a swapping interface to facilitate user acquisition for new protocols. Therefore, all users must trade on third-party aggregators. This serves as a minimal viable user capture strategy to drive user acquisition for the new protocols. Slide 5. Creator royalties. Canto allows royalties for contract deployers, incentivizing developers to deploy smart contracts on Canto. This helps to attract developers to the platform, promote innovation, and increase the usage of Canto blockchain. Attracting developers is key in the endgame. Slide 6. Conclusion. Adding the Tendermint stack could provide high liquidity, low fees, and minimal user acquisition costs for Maker. It could also incentivize developers to build on the Maker ecosystem, leading to more innovation and adoption for a new chain. It is essential for protocol facilitators and ecosystem actors to support the early stages of research and development of the build-out. Thank you for watching the presentation.
Thanks a lot. That was awesome. Text-to-speech. That's super cool. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. What I don't really get is why wouldn't we want to build on ETH? Like with all these new developments now, right? Like Eclipse and Eigenlayer and Celestia and Espresso and like all these things. Like, so ETH is currently at this stage where we have this kind of roll-up as a service coming on, and they're basically secured with ETH. But then you can like basically configure all the parameters that you want, like transaction fees, and even the virtual machine and so on and so forth. And you would say that Canto is Canto like better than building on ETH? That seems like pretty far-fetched. So I think I love this discussion. I would like to see a couple of alternatives to Canto. Like I'm not super bullish on IBC, I have to say. It's just like my personal take. It's like I'm an Ethereum maxi. Like that's just me. I don't want to preempt to he might have a very different opinion here. And I think like Ethereum development looks like it's gonna eat Cosmos's cake. Maybe don't quote me on that, but it's research. Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, Bona Publica. This is not meant to as a criticism of your presentation. That was just awesome. So thank you for presenting it. I understand much more now. This is really good. I'm just a little concerned about this move to Cosmos from Ethereum, where our home is, where our protocol developers are intimately familiar with the chain, and which seems to be able to already develop in a direction where it can basically do whatever Cosmos can do, but actually much more mature. So we'll see. I think it's an interesting discussion for sure. And thanks again for the presentation. Marketing-wise, Canto did very well. Definitely true. The question is if would Maker be able to build on that or not? Creator incentives is great. That's true. We would have to definitely look into that if smart contract deployers can get fees. Mm. Yeah, I think nobody made any money directly from smart contract use, right? Like, except if he's also running a couple of validators. And obviously, like when we go into this layer discussion, like this whole rollup as a service is basically layer 3, right? It's like you're building on top of some kind of layer 2 structure mostly, but you'd still kind of be secured by ETH proper and use the same data availability layer. So what I like about Ethereum's model is there's no fragmented liquidity, like ETH all across the thing, and everything is secured by this massive amount of liquidity that we have on ETH. And then with these data availability layers, like the whole bridging problem will just go away, I think. Okay. What I would like to do is to focus a bit. Well, let me share my screen again, because this is actually quite. Yeah, I'll just try to test it. This is quite in line with what I think we should do as an AVC is give guidance to the teams working. And Derek already made a comment a couple of calls ago that he would appreciate if we give priorities to protocol engineering. And I think like what are like the most important things that protocol engineers should work on. So I made a suggestion, and maybe delegates can chime in if they see like any conflicts here with the development of where we want to go. So I think core maintenance is the #1 priority, right? Like writing spells, making sure everything's running, squashing bugs, all that thing. Definitely #1 for me. I talked with you, and we talked in this call about it, and we think growth for DAI supply, DAI demands will come from layer 2 development. So I think protocol engineers should have that as the second priority, because this is a pretty low-hanging fruit. We could incentivize DAI demand on L2s right now with very little cost, actually. So assessing bridge safety, and as a second part, maybe thinking about deploying VATs or vaults on L2s would be, in my point of view, a very good second priority. A third priority, I think, could be, it has to be actually, endgame product development. So Elixir has to be developed, the Sagittarius engine has to be developed, farms and etc. have to be developed. I'm not sure if this should probably even supersede L2 deployment, And yeah, I think frontier research makes a good point here. We have to get a sense of like how much work is that, right? Like, I mean, it seems like developing stuff, new stuff, is like obviously probably harder to do than just, you know, finding a safe enough bridge to send like 1 or 2 million DAI over, so we can LP on Velodrome or on GMX, right? And then do protocol engineers work on the DAO toolkit? It is in the protocol scope, so I think they should. I haven't heard anything else, but like I'm happy to be corrected here. Frontier research, it seems the page you link to does not exist, or at least not if I link to it. No, doesn't exist or is private. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the input. I think definitely we need to get more clarity on like how much work all of that is, so we can prioritize better. That will be something I will try to do until the next meeting. What I would love delegates to do is think about knowledge management tools, if you find any. Think about requirements for advisory councils to the ecosystem scope. And then think about requirements for the advisory council for the protocol scope. I think these 3 things would be amazing. Just drop whatever you have, either as comments here in the HackMD or directly in the Discord, and I'll just make sure I can collect all of that. Other than that, I think that was a very productive meeting. Thanks all of you all. If there are any more questions by delegates, I'm happy to take a stab at answering them, or otherwise I'll give you back 10 minutes of your time. All right. Thanks a lot, and have a nice week. See you next week on Wednesday, when it's time again for the Growth CVC meetup.